Up on Network Africa. At least 9 people killed in 2 simultaneous car bombings in central Somalia. The United Nations Security Council welcomes Mozambique as its new member, replacing Kenya, which has completed its 2-year tenure. And Ghana joins other countries to impose COVID restrictions on Chinese travelers. Hello everyone, and thanks for joining us this hour for Network Africa. I'm Amarachi Ubani here in Lagos. We'll begin in Somalia, where at least 19 people have been killed, several others wounded in twin car bomb attacks in Mahas, a town in central Somalia. The incident happened this morning. Officials say that the attackers used vehicles loaded with explosives to stage the attack on the town. Militants have continued to carry out attacks in central and southern Somalia, despite recent government troops backed by African Union forces and local militia retaking areas previously captured by the Al-Shabaab group. Now in Mali, authorities say 5 people have been killed in an attack by unidentified assailants in the southeast, about 80 kilometers from the capital, Bamako. The victims, 3 civilians and 2 firefighters, were members of a civil defense force. Military ceremonies and burials for the 2 service members are taking place today. The attack is said to have happened in a part of the country where violence is rare, while the jihadist insurgency rages in the central and northern regions. Police prosecutors in the Gambia have charged 2 civilians and a police officer in connection with last month's alleged coup plot. The 3 men were charged with concealment of treason and conspiracy to commit a felony. They deny the charges. They're accused of conspiring and failing to report information on the planned overthrow of President Adama Barrow in October and December 2022 within the capital, Banjul, and in other places in the country. They were further accused of being informed by the alleged ringleader of a plan to overthrow President Barrow, which they failed to report to their relevant authorities. Just last week, a national security advisor said civilians were complicit because they were involved in financing the alleged coup plot. In December, the government reported that it had thwarted an attempted coup and arrested some soldiers. It'll be the first time the accused people have been taken to court. Military personnel will be taken to a court-martial instead. Mozambique has replaced Kenya at the UN Security Council with a promise to prioritize the fight against terrorism. The country will serve at the council as a non-permanent member for the next 2 years. Mozambique has been battling an Islamist insurgency in its northern Cabo Delgado province for the past 5 years. According to official data, the conflict has displaced over 1 million people and killed approximately 4,000 others. Mr. Commissario, who's with the United Nations Security Council, said the country would also push for reforms at the Security Council to address African concerns. Usually, the Security Council has 5 permanent members: the United States, Russia, France, UK, China, and 10 non-permanent members.
To the pressing issues.
As an elected member, we will therefore attach great importance to situations that constitute serious threats to peaceful existence of states in the 21st century. Paramount among contemporary threats to international peace and security is the progressive Africanization of terrorism affecting our continent.
Burkina Faso has asked France to recall its ambassador Luc Halad after several tense exchanges with the military junta that has strained relations between the 2 countries. Burkina Faso's Foreign Affairs Minister Olivier Ruamba reportedly wrote to the French presidency at the end of December demanding a change of representative. The development comes less than 2 weeks after Burkina Faso expelled the UN resident coordinator Barbara Manzi. In November, the French embassy in Ouagadougou accused Burkina Faso of failing to provide adequate protection to its premises, which were attacked during the anti-French protests last year. In July, Ambassador Halaud was forced to apologize for comparing militant violence in Burkina Faso to a civil war. The country is increasingly embracing Russia, seemingly under the influence of Mali, which cut diplomatic ties with France last year after Paris condemned Bamako's use of Russian mercenaries. I move to Tanzania, where after 6 years, President Samia Suluhu Hassan has lifted a ban on opposition political rallies outside of election campaigns. The president made the announcement during a meeting with leaders from all 19 of the country's registered political parties. The ban was imposed by her predecessor, the late President John Magufuli, who argued that in between elections, they were a waste of time and money. But it was criticized by the opposition and activists as unconstitutional. Lifting of the ban is part of the president's political reconciliation and reform drive, which he initiated after taking power in 2021 following Magufuli's death. His period in power was often seen as taking Tanzania down a more authoritarian route. And in recent months, the president and her governing CCM party has been talking with opposition parties behind closed doors. Speaking at the meeting, President Samia said her government would try to restart a stalled constitutional review process in the meantime. Authorities in Ghana are set to toughen entry restrictions from January 6, citing an increase in COVID-19 cases in China. All air travelers arriving from China will now be required to present a negative PCR COVID test result not older than 48 hours before departure and undergo another test on arrival in Ghana's Kotoka International Airport at no cost. Ghana Airports Company Limited, which announced the updated guidelines on its website, says all persons arriving in Ghana who are fully vaccinated will be exempted from any form of testing done either prior to boarding from an originating country or on arrival in Ghana, except passengers originating their journey from China. According to the GACL, non-Ghanaians traveling to Kotoka International Airport with fake vaccination certificates will be quarantined and returned to the point of boarding at their cost. The GACL is also quoted as saying airlines that bring passengers to Ghana who are not fully vaccinated or passengers originating their journey from China without a valid negative COVID-19 PCR test results 48 hours prior to the departure would be surcharged $3,500. And to this report in South Africa, where a robbery suspect has died, 5 others wounded after they drove into oncoming traffic as they were being chased by the police in Durban. According to the police, a vehicle they were driving in had been reported to have been involved in a house robbery earlier in the day. Police spotted them along a road in Umbilo. They later released a statement saying the suspects defying police's instruction to stop. A high-speed chase ensued. The vehicle, they said, collided head-on with a horse and trailer after driving into the oncoming traffic. The driver died instantly, while the injured were taken to hospital. Meanwhile, there's been outrage over a video showing a company dumping waste illegally alongside a road in Durban, South Africa. In the video that's gone viral, a vehicle is seen parked on the side of the road, offloading unidentifiable waste into stormwater drain. The incident reportedly took place on the N2 northbound after Edwin Swales. Environmentalist Desmond Disa is calling for the company to face the full might of the law. Back here in Nigeria, the Ogun State government is seeking the understanding and help of the federal government and multilateral agencies towards reducing perennial flooding, which has continued to have adverse effects on its economy. A call was made in Abeokuta, the state capital, by the Commissioner for Environment, Ola Oresoya. While receiving the Southwest Presidential Technical Committee on Flood on behalf of the Governor, Dapo Abiodun, the Presidential Technical Committee on Flood has been set up by the federal government to provide sustainable solutions to flooding in each of the 6 geopolitical zones in the country.
As part of its assignment in the Southwest towards drafting specific policies in order to mitigate the perennial flooding ravaging the zone in recent times, the Presidential Technical Committee is on a fact-finding mission to Ogun State. After interacting with residents of the affected communities who shared their experiences in Ota and Abeokuta, the team leader said strategic desilting of river channels and canals has become imperative.
Financial activity is just crumbling. Even people that are living there, they've parked. Some people that are working in Lagos, they find it hard to access the express, so they park away. The flood is another thing entirely. The flood will reach my chest. If anybody wants to go out, we need to haul our clothes, we haul our trousers, we park it in the back, and we go through the flood. It's very, very pathetic.
Our mandate for being in this state is to look at the areas that were flooded, look at the sources of the flooding, and then look for solutions to these flooding problems.
He suggests a paradigm shift in some of the sustainable solutions being proposed by the federal government.
The past practice had been that you put up one policy to address all the different parts of the country. But experience have shown that each geopolitical zone is unique, and so solutions to the flooding in those zones must be unique.
Representing Governor Dapo Abiodun, the Commissioner for Environment, Mr. Olaore Sonya, gives technical details on the effort of the state government and seeks the assistance of the federal government and its multilateral agencies in curtailing the flood.
We have a deliberate attempt to continue to line most of our secondary trunks so that we already divided into various systems, and the next thing is to line them, and these are part of the things we want the committee to take home, really, that Ogun State is desirous of lining most of the secondary trunks to enable reduction or elimination of the urban flooding. And we've started, but we need the support of the federal government or multilateral donor agencies.
The committee has 48 hours to complete its assignment in Ogun State, and this includes more visits to various communities.
When Network Africa returns, we have more stories for you. Plus, it's not just a toy, there are constructions that depict renewable energy. We'll have details in a moment. Join us again. Welcome back. It's the Watching Network Africa on Channels Television, broadcasting live from Lagos. At least 583 people have died from suspected cholera cases here in Nigeria in the year 2022. And that's according to a report by the Nigeria Center for Disease Control, the NCDC. The latest data from the agency reveals that 23,550 cases were reported across 32 states, plus the Federal Capital Territory between January and November 2022. The report also shows that 10 states, including Borno, Yobe, Katsina, Gombe, and Taraba, contributed to the over 22,000 suspected cholera cases last year. In November alone, 1,393 suspected cases were reported, with 33 fatalities. Cholera is a vaccine-preventable disease, yet it continues to kill hundreds of people in the country each year. In the meantime, the federal government here in Nigeria, through the International Fund for Agricultural Development, IFAD, and the Value Chain Development Program, has raised hope of farmers with the introduction of the flood-resistant rice variety to address climate change, especially flooding. Representative of the National Program Coordinator for IFAD VCDP, Mrs. Vera Onyaka Onyilo, made the announcement during a one-day state-level knowledge-sharing summit in Anambra State.
The conference hall of the Agricultural Development Program Office in Awka, the Anambra State capital, is the venue of the knowledge-sharing event with a theme promoting collaboration among value chain actors, the exit strategy. It's organized to discuss ways to promote a better collaboration among stakeholders in the value chain.
Our farmers can actually, especially the youth and the women, can actually venture into this as a source of an enterprise that you can get money from. Then converting the cassava peel into animal feed. Instead of just leaving your place with your cassava peel, you can actually convert it to wealth. And that's one of the mainstreaming activities IFAD is bringing.
The representative of the National Program Coordinator of IFAD and VCDP, a National Knowledge Management and Communication Advisor, announces IFAD's support package for flood-affected farmers, which include flood-resistant rice variety and funds.
$1 million USD was released to support our farmers with agro inputs. And it's for vulnerable farmers that were really affected by flood, and the states have done due diligence in getting the names of these farmers and forwarded to Abuja.
Insurance costs is part of the prerequisite for approval of business plans.
Insurance is something you can do and then go home and sleep, right? It's not even expensive because the federal government is paying 50. The state is paying 25, and then you're paying just 25, which is very little. Very little. You can pay it for 1 hectare.
During the brainstorming session, stakeholders also draw attention to areas of challenge.
That man that sprays the chemical for you, I hope you know it's part of the value chain. Yes. That man that uproots cassava for you, I hope you know it's part of the value chain. Yes. Now, when you uproot a cassava, that vehicle that takes it to the market, that vehicle that takes it to the company, that cost is never shown in our cost analysis. And this is where we have a challenge. So you notice that to some extent, there are some key players in this value chain that we're not considering. And I think that is what I want this program to look at before we get to the end.
The event is concluded with an inspection of processed products by trained personnel from the Agricultural Development Program Office.
I would like to remind you of one of our lead stories today, and that is the Ghanaian government preparing to impose restrictions from January 6th on travelers coming from China because of the increase in COVID-19 cases there. From that date, all travelers arriving from China will be required to present a negative PCR COVID test results not older than 48 hours before departure and undergo another test on arrival in Ghana's Kotoka International Airport at no cost. We have Joy News TV's Maxwell Agbaba joining us now. He is in Accra. Maxwell, thank you for making time to be with us today. But generally, has Ghana lifted all COVID restrictions in the country 2 years after the pandemic? Maxwell, I believe you're still muted. If you could just unmute your microphone. Maxwell is on the go. He is on a special assignment already, carving out some time to be with us on the Network Africa. Let's try this again, Maxwell, and I'm sure that you can hear me now. Just unmute your microphone. Oh, I apologize. Bandwidth with Maxwell still shaky there. But we move on. We're always looking out for stories that involve saving the environment. And this next story comes from Egypt, where hundreds of school children gathered in the Grand Museum to turn piles of Lego blocks into renewable energy structures. From wind turbines to cars powered by solar energy Teams of children aged 4 to 6 competed in the first Lego League Discover.
It's the 6th edition of the first Lego League, and children are busily sorting Lego for their project. The aim of this edition is to find solutions for storing, distributing and transporting renewable energy by creating Lego structures. 400 pupils are divided into 80 teams of 5 from 9 Egyptian governorates. Each team has had 3 months to think of the idea and train ahead of the competition.
They are
fully aware of the sources of energy, how to save and distribute energy, and how to transport it. Through this competition, children are also learning team building and problem-solving skills.
It is a very unique opportunity for the children that they get to know more about sources of renewable energy and to understand these through Lego blocks. They learn how to build turbines and understand different types of renewable energy in more detail. For children between the ages of 5 and 7, it is honestly a great experience to know all this and to share the knowledge with society in the future, hopefully.
The championship is being held at the Grand Egyptian Museum next to the Giza Pyramids. The new museum's official opening is expected to take place this year. This year's theme focuses on energy and how children can find solutions for sustainable and clean sources of energy, how to store and distribute it, and also how to save energy. Parents and organizers watch as the children display their creations.
Those kids, I tell you, very creative. Thanks for joining us. I'm Amarachi Ubani. See you next time.